Hi there. I've been contemplating doing this video for some time, but now is the time to do it, I think. For about 15 to 20 years I have been more or less continuously using A5 sort of ring bound setup, more and less. Not since about 2012, 2011, this particular layout, which I think you'll most probably be fairly familiar with. It's available on filefaxy.com if you've not seen this one. And it's our enhanced time management insert. So you have effectively like a week on one page on the left hand side and tasks and other stuff on the right hand side. Very careful to have equal space for every day. A lot of the commercial ones tend to squeeze up the weekends, and that's no good to me, so hence the sort of redesign. There are various versions of this around as well. This is a 4-line version, but there is a 5-line as well if you so wish. Now, whilst I've been sort of using this continuously and it works just fine, for some time now I've wanted to try downsizing, if you like, to personal size, because whilst I've got a lot of A5 organisers, I also have a lot of personal size which are obviously underused. So I've been looking at sort of various inserts, either bought or printed myself sort of thing, to try and mimic the usability of this, to make sure that nothing gets forgotten and nothing sort of disappears into the woods sort of thing. I initially started off with more or less sort of a personal version of this insert, but you lose quite a bit of the functionality. Effectively that column vanishes, and you can just about do that, and you can just about do that. But in the restricted size of personal, I found it was quite cramped. So I then sort of went back to the drawing board and had a look around to see what else there was, and I came up with this as an alternative. So we'll move that one out of the way. Careful to make sure you can see this. So what I've come up with, and this again is available on filefaxy.com, but not quite this version, but one similar, is a two days per page. So a week is spread over sort of a double spread, as it were, which is not a big problem, or shouldn't be. And as you can see, I've been trying it out with a sort of a typical week's worth of things, and you end up with a gap at the end of the week, obviously, which is sort of a notes. So this was my test one. Let's bring in what I've actually created. So let's start on a Monday. This one actually almost doesn't, you could almost think of that as the start of the week, Sunday start if you'd like, but then you end up with sort of notes here. But I'm sort of a Monday start person sort of thing. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then back to Sunday again. What this gives me is about 5 lines of appointments and round about 5 lines of tasks on each day, with the necessary boxes and what have you. I've pre-printed in the sort of ones that I'm always writing in. There's, you know, web finds on Fridays and Tuesdays, and there's a few others like birthdays and what have you all appeared in the week thing. The obvious disadvantage to this is that is a full year's worth, i.e. around about 108, 110 pages worth of personal size inserts. The other issue, of course, is these are printed 2 sheets per A4. So you've got to cut it in half, you've got to cut the top, you've got to cut the bottom, you've got to cut the sides, and then punch them, and I also round the corners off as well. So that did take quite a lot of time. I am not going to underestimate how many days I spent cutting and sort of punching and all the rest of it. I only messed up on one sheet, which I just reprinted, which wasn't a big deal. Yeah, planner, well, fairly straightforward. Do dozens of those. The second diary in here is used for blog posts, and I opted for the month on 2 pages for that. I could have done this in colour, but it doesn't matter, it still functions reasonably well, and that gives me the full 12 months. At the moment I have the full 12 months in here, but in actual practice I might opt to cut it down to, say, a 6-month rolling period sort of thing, because this is in a 30mm Cavendish at the moment, and that just about takes everything. But if you think of just calendars and diaries alone, that is a big chunk of the pages I shall be using. Apart from that, I've redone my travel packing list, which I do use quite frequently. I've also added all my regular things that I have to do before I leave the house, sort of thing, if we're both going, sort of thing. And likewise a meet-up attendance list. That's fairly well used. Standard to-do lists. This was the other reason for considering going back to personal size, is I have a huge number of personal inserts in boxes that are just not being used, sort of thing. So that was as good as excuse as any for using some of them up at long last. So I'm sort of more or less committed now to giving this a try in 2026, which for June you might think, oh, you're a bit early, aren't you? But it's mostly about 2 years too late in a way, because I've been talking about doing this for some considerable time, but just never got round to it. Either balked at what wasn't going to work, what didn't work, and all the rest of it. So this really is sort of, you know, you've come this far, you spent all this time doing this, it's time to put it into practice. And whilst I've done the sort of test pages and what have you, this was just a sort of I filled the thing up with a typical week sort of thing. It will be interesting to sort of try it out compared to using sort of the A5 setup all the time. I might prepare a file, but I won't print it for next year. This is ready to go for till the end of this year. That's all printed and all the rest of it. And you know, we're in June already, and I've been using these pages all the way through. And I've sort of gone through the rest of the my pages to see what I have been using on a regular basis, and seeing what needs to also be replicated into personal. I won't be using both at the same time. Made that mistake a few years back of trying to use two organisers. It's bad enough duplicating stuff between paper and digital, of course. So you don't want to do that if you can help it. But I will be reporting back once I start using this at the end of the year. We'll see how it goes. And of course, if you've got any questions, you know where to find me. So that's it for me. Take care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.